My name is Jeff Kresge. I'm the Jamestown Social Studies Curriculum Coach in Jamestown, New York. My email address is jeffrey.a.kresge@jpsny.org. And what we want to talk about right now is the Social Studies project for 6th grade in May. The standard is New York State Standard 6.6, which is that the students will understand that the Mediterranean world was reshaped by the fall of the Roman Empire, and 3 groups basically came to the forefront. They are feudal Western Europe, the Byzantine Empire, and the Islamic Caliphates. And for this particular project, we're going to really look at the Islamic Caliphates because they enveloped both Jews and Christianity within their group, and we're going to see that as we move on. Anytime you have any questions on this, you could just run this video all over again by hitting this document or hitting this link on the document, and you'll be all set. Now, so what we want to look at here with this investigation in May is why was the Caliphate of Cordoba a success? And I gave you a little background information to run with there. And to do this, we're going to do 4 separate projects. So if you figure 1 per week in May, we'll be all set. So the first week, project number 1 is how did the Muslims come to rule Spain? So when the Muslims got into Europe, we're going to see the spread throughout this map. And so what I did was I put a couple of documents together to allow the kids to get that timeline. So what I'm going to ask them to do is to create a digital timeline of events. It could be digital, it could be paper, it doesn't really matter, but they're going to create a timeline of events. So what happened? And I have 3 documents to help the kids out. So I have some information here in the heading, and then the map here. Make sure you pay attention to the key. Then the second map has another little background information and a map here of the Caliphate of Spain in Cordoba. And then a third document, a little note here, and a little bit of it's a letter actually, where the leader, the Caliph of Cordoba, is declaring himself the leader. So use those 3 materials to create your timeline. The second project then is going to be how was Cordoba the center of learning and innovation? And really when we look at Cordoba, that's why it was so successful, is because of their religious tolerance and their real love for education. And so it's an important lesson that we should probably take today. So project 2, we want to look at, here's a little background information for you. We're going to look at 2 documents that I left for you. And what I asked the students to do is to create a couple of examples, a list of examples that shows that learning was in fact taking place during the time when the rest of Europe was not. Now remember, we're talking here 900 AD, and that's in the center of the Dark Ages in Europe where no learning is taking place. Yet we see in the Islamic Spain this great learning. And so you see in Europe, which we traditionally think of as advanced, they're really falling behind the Muslims in Islamic Spain. So let's take a look at that. 3 quotes here about the learning in Cordoba. The first from a Christian nun. The second, a quote from somebody who was in Cordoba. And the third from a historian looking back in Cordoba in the 1200s. The second document there to help us out, to learn about the learning, is that a list of surgical instruments. There are a bunch of drawings of surgical instruments that were used by the father of modern surgery, who was in Islamic Spain. Third document, believe it or not, is one of an Islamic inventor, poet, engineer, who theoretically, or rumor had it was, he created an early flying apparatus, and here is a drawing of that. So, with learning taking place, how did the Muslims in Islamic Spain deal with other religions? Well, they're all in their own backyard, and so how did that work out? Turned out quite well. So here we want to know, how was it that the Christians and Jews were treated in Cordoba? So, a couple of documents for the kids here to talk about those 3 major religions living next to each other. And so I added a piece of art for us with a little note, background information, describing what we're seeing here. So piece of art to help us out, and then a letter, again, with a little background information about what we're reading, and then a note from a Jewish advisor to the Caliph of Cordoba. And lastly, just to make sure we've got it, here's our big question, of course, for the unit. Why was the Caliphate of Cordoba a success? Hopefully, throughout the study of the three prior projects, you'll be able to figure out why that was the case. If not, go back to those documents and check. And so what I want the students to do is just create an argument. Any way you could do that. You could do a poster, a collage, a piece of art, an essay. It doesn't really matter. That's going to talk about why the Caliphate of Cordoba was a success. Now, the fun thing about social studies is there's no correct answer for this. It's just that you're drawing information from those documents and making up your own mind as to why it is in your eyes, in your view, why Cordoba was successful. Now, each person in your family might come up with different answers, and that's why social studies is so fun. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention as I was going over this. I really wanted you to create a piece of art for this one. So it's in there. Project 3 is to create a piece of art to symbolize how Jews, Christians, and Muslims got along in Cordoba. So rather than we do that traditional writing piece, if we could do some art, that would really be great. Again, my name is Jeff Kresge. I'm the Jamestown Social Studies Curriculum Coach in Jamestown, New York. If you have any questions on this or anything else regarding the teaching of education of social studies, reach out to me. It's jeffrey.a.kresge@jpsny.org. And thank you so much.